Among the different art sites in the community, Furaffinity stands high above the crowd and has been credited as the largest furry online space. Much like Anthrocon in the past, it has become synonymous with fandom itself. Hello Furs from the web, my name is Scar, and this is the story of Furaffinity.net. Stay tuned. Furry fandom has been around for nearly 4 decades. One of the core components of the fandom has been artwork, depicting anthropomorphic characters in a variety of mediums. APA and fanzines back in the day offered a way for art communities to be connected, and conventions brought them together. With the World Wide Web becoming mainstream in the 2000s, Furry would fully embrace its internet age and carried over many of its components digitally. Art is one of the biggest ones, with different art websites evolving the art communities. General art sites, notably DeviantArt, drove some furry traffic, but furries created their own as well. Amidst YERF and E621 was a website birthed by the name of Furaffinity on January 16, 2005. Sheezy Art was an art archive that sprung up in 2003. Unlike DeviantArt, Sheezy allowed almost every type of content. DeviantArt is infamous among adult artists for its somewhat strict policy on sexual content. Sheezy had no such restrictions, and so it drew in a lot of artists, including furry ones. That was until 2005, when they banned all adult material on their platform, and so many of those artists subsequently left. Furaffinity was founded by Alcora as an alternative to other sites including Sheezy, and many of those furry artists migrated to the new platform. In the summer, security holes led to the site being hacked for the first time. Disagreements between the lead coder, Jaren, and the host provider, Arcturus, led to the website shutting its doors on August 1st. Arcturus and his supporters left to create the site ArtPlease, leaving Furaffinity without a server to be hosted on. With the help of the community, Furaffinity managed to raise the funds to buy new hardware, and would return to life almost a year later in 2006. One of the users who joined months before the shutdown worked with Alcora to bring Furaffinity back from the brink. This user, Dragoneer, was appointed head admin following the site's return. In October 2007, he went on to purchase the site and took full ownership. Furaffinity also opened up forums on a separate site, bringing a more direct social side to its art community. In 2005, Furaffinity partnered with the Northeast Anthropomorphic Association to bring about a new convention to New Jersey. Anthrocon's move from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to the other side in Pittsburgh, people were looking for something closer to home. A common goal of pulling the fandom closer together led to this collaborative effort. In August 2007, Furaffinity United was held for the first time in Newark, New Jersey. The website's mascot, Fender, was also used in promotional material, really helping tie the entire Furaffinity brand in the event. FAU's attendance never reached the upper echelons of FurryCons, but was still successful. The first outing brought together 310 attendees, and the con would peak in 2014 with 707. The first con also managed to raise $1,600 for the Lakota Wolf Preserve. During the economic recession of the late 2000s, FAU was faced with financial issues and was forced to cancel the convention for 2009. A fur meet was organized to replace the event and keep the con going in the future, but was met with bad weather conditions and scheduling issues. The year passed with no official event being held, to the disappointment of regulars. Dragoneer relocated in Northern Virginia in 2016, and the convention moved with him, relocating into Herndon. After many years of operation, the convention met its end in 2020 due to the world pandemic. While no reason is given for the permanent closure of the con, it is likely due to lacking the finances needed to set up the event. This is an issue facing many conventions in the pandemic. Conventions cost money to even plan, and only retain the funds needed to keep the con afloat, given that most are run by nonprofits. When a convention has to cancel its plans for a year, it loses that money invested in setting up the event. There could be a purge of small cons coming soon if the state of the world doesn't improve. It's impossible to tell if FAU died for this reason, but as spoken about later in this video, Dragoneer would already be in a hard financial situation himself. Furaffinity went on to become the largest website in the fandom, and today ranks the highest in the Alexa ratings. Furaffinity became synonymous with the online fandom, in the same way Anthrocon became synonymous with furry conventions as a whole. It was looked upon highly, and even if you weren't active there, almost everyone had a Furaffinity account. The website reached 1 million submissions by January 2008, another million by February 2009, and a total of 3 million just 8 months later that November. By 2016, it had amassed 2.1 million visitors, 1.78 billion files, and used 38.8 terabytes of bandwidth. Furaffinity became huge, and really demonstrated how big the fandom was growing compared to its roots. In April 2010, the network saw a host of improvements, including profile ID images akin to DeviantArt's, and the embedding of YouTube and Flash-based content. With October came the ability for artists to hide comments on their work, and commenters the same. A year later, the announcement was made that the furry networking site Furocity would be quote-unquote joining forces with Furaffinity, and staff were merged into the FA team. This was done with no forewarning to the existing staff. 7 new members total were brought on board, filling new roles to help improve the community. In 2006, coders on the staff team had attempted to create a new backend system called Project Ferrox that would be used for the next design iteration of Furaffinity. Within 3 years, development stalled, and the lead coder, apparently the only one who knew Python, left the group, and no one could continue the project. The design was given a facelift in 2007, but otherwise stagnated considerably for over a decade. In 2013, another attempt to overhaul the site was started under the name Project Phoenix. One of the developers brought on was Zosh, an artist who would receive a heaping amount of backlash not long for allegations made against him. Furaffinity.net has been host to quite a few major technical attacks over the years. While it's not a rare occurrence for any website, Furaffinity's juggernaut position in the fandom ensured that they would be well documented and carried out quite frequently. Being on top of its pedestal surely meant it became a target for the community. In 2005, the fragile security of the website left it at the mercy of hackers who broke their way in. This was talked about earlier, and the community was able to bring the server back together. That being said, it took over a year for Furaffinity to return. 2 years later, the site owner Dragoneer had his account breached at his own convention. According to Wikifur, he was hacked at FA United while using the hotel's unsecured Wi-Fi. While for the first time in this series' history, I'm not going to be reading it aloud, this note was left on the front page of the website. Unfortunately, this wasn't recorded on archive.org, but the aftermath message was apologizing for the recent outage. The forums weren't affected, leading to a thread that contained discussion over the messages shared on the homepage. In 2010, on December 17th, a hacker used an exploit on the website to gain full control over an admin's account. While the staff managed to regain control a few hours later, the following day, another admin's email was compromised. The hacker obtained private notes for well-known users and wiped the galleries of a few as well. The forums were also hacked, with staff boards being leaked publicly. Thankfully, it was handled, and anyone who was compromised was offered a free sponsorship-level admission to FAU. On October 14, 2014, Furaffinity was the victim of a major DDoS attack which took the website offline. The following day, several other furry sites were attacked as well. Ink Bunny, Weasel, E621, and F-List were all targeted. May 17, 2016, Furaffinity was offline. The reason was the source code had been leaked and was being shared around on thumb drives at BLFC 2016. An exploit was found in ImageMagick, the software FA uses to process images on its website. The site was attacked targeting the database, leading to what could have been the end of a lot of data. The attack was successfully stopped before real damage could be done, and the website returned online. I remember making a RIP FA video during this, because seeing such a giant attack after only being a few months in the fandom actually kind of bummed me out. Side trivia, this was my first video to reach 100 views on this channel, mostly from posting it in the Furaffinity forums thread. In 2020, Cloudflare was DDoSed, which affected many sites including FA, but at least for once the attack wasn't on the website itself. Being the biggest furry site puts a large microscope on what content is or isn't allowed. There have been many debates on what material is acceptable on FA. You can find almost anything in the fandom, some of which is looked down upon by large amounts of the community. In the political war of 2018, there was a huge discussion about the presence of neo-Nazis in the furry fandom. One of the groups put under much scrutiny was the Furry Raiders, who had a logo that looked very similar to the swastika flag. This sort of imagery was very looked down upon in the fandom. On April 16, 2020, FA updated their code of conduct and upload policy to directly ban the upload of imagery that could be connected with hate groups or terrorist organizations. As early as 2006, the staff team were faced with the controversial subject of whether or not to allow explicit underage furry artwork on the website. While it was forbidden by TOS, not all staff shared the sentiment. A few months later, in November, Furaffinity lifted the ban, although there were many strings attached for anyone who wanted to post that kind of material. This lasted for 4 years until it was permanently reinstated in November 2010. This following a public disapproval of the decision, and many artists threatening to form an exodus had the ban remained lifted. For many people, this sort of content is very looked down upon or a touchy subject. These bans were widely accepted by most members of the fandom. Users have also received bans for very controversial acts. Chew Fox, a woman who appeared on the Tyra Banks show, was banned initially with the note, "This account has been closed due to the following reason. User has brought shame to the entire fandom for their own self-gain." In the ban against hate content, they also banned users tied to Alt-Furry and the Furry Raiders. IMVU is an avatar-based social network akin to Second Life, or VR chat without the VR. The company behind it made history in the fandom with their decision to purchase Furaffinity and its host company from Dragoneer in March of 2015. The decision was met with lukewarm reception, with many people afraid of the corporation getting involved in the furry fandom so directly. Furries had always been reliant on their own content, and seeing a large company dip its toes in properly was frightening, especially given how mainstream media had treated the fandom in the past. Aside from large ad placements that took up the side of the screen, a decision that was reversed in under a day, no major changes came to the website. Dragoneer was kept on the team as a community manager, allowing him some power post-acquisition. In January of 2020, a revamped Furaffinity was uploaded to the internet. This UI and layout bears striking resemblance to the original Project Phoenix. This design shift modernized the website in many ways, and received positively throughout the community. The changing banner at the top of the website was restored as well, a concept that had been lost long before. Many upgrades were made across the board, helping future-proof the aging website. Tencent is a famous name in the video game industry as China's multimedia giant. Following behind in second place is a company by the name of NetEase. In January of 2021, they, among some others, invested money into IMVU. Specifically, the companies invested a tune of $35 billion. With the massive financial backing, the company went through a restructure. This restructure led to them cutting Furaffinity loose and selling the website back to Dragoneer. This announcement was made public on February 1st of 2021. Originally, the response was positive, but that was before Dragoneer would leak the story through a series of tweets. The following day, he tweeted out that his only regret was that he had lost his health insurance and he had to drop his antidepressants and bipolar medication. He also claimed that he took out loans and spent every dime he had on the purchase, more money to buy back than he originally sold it for. He did go back on his previous statement and announced that he did have some money left, and his own were separate entities. Whatever the truth is, people were afraid and worried about the future of its site and its caretaker. Some people have even claimed that the acquisition was a desperate attempt by Dragoneer to stay relevant in the fandom. There was a widespread fear that Furaffinity's days were numbered, but in the months since the website has changed hands, it's still around. As of April 2021, the website seems stable. Staff were putting these rumors to rest, such as Luffy, who posted in a thread on the forums. Quote, "There's no doom and gloom. Regardless of what people are citing, IMVU selling us means that we don't have to abide by what they want the FA brand to be. It also means that they are not financially assisting us anymore. However, I will tell you that IMVU did not have a direct role in how the site was run or in any part of the administration. I never once even learned the name of anyone from IMVU, and I'm an administrator. There won't be any huge changes aside from us having more freedom with what we want to do, albeit losing some funding, which is why we're now hoping for an increase in FA Plus subscriptions. We're working on other stuff too, but it's secret. I keep seeing journals where people are afraid for their furry lives because FA was sold back to Near. It's not that bad, trust me. It's just like the years before IMVU owned it." Unquote. Currently, the future of FA is up in the air. We, as the public, don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. But it's steady at the time of writing, and if anything dramatic ever happens again in the future, you know I'll be here updating it for you guys. And that is the story of Furaffinity. Furry's biggest art site still stands as a banner in the fandom, even through its rugged history. Until next time when I talk about how the furry fandom is structured, a surprisingly difficult question to answer, stay tuned.